So this is part 3 of chapter 1 review. We're going to start with number 24. This is at the bottom of page 62 in your textbook. It says, at a vegetable stand, you bought 3 pounds of peppers for $4.50. Green peppers cost $1 per pound and orange peppers cost $4 per pound. Find how many pounds of each pepper you bought. And the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out our variables. So first we're going to let X be the pounds of green peppers that we have. And then since there are 3 pounds total, I'm going to take that 3 pounds, subtract the pounds of green peppers, and that's going to give me the orange peppers. So we're going to let 3 minus X be the pounds of orange peppers. This way, if you do this with X and 3 minus X, we only have one variable that we need to solve for. So now let's write our equation. First of all, you're going to take 1 times X. So it would be $1 for the pounds of green peppers. Plus, you're going to take $4 times the pounds of orange peppers. So that leaves us with the X plus 4 times the quantity of 3 minus X, and that's going to equal our total cost of $4.50. The next step would be to go ahead and distribute. So you'd end up with the equation you see on the screen. And then we combine the X's, since they're both on the same side, and that gives us negative 3X plus 12 equals 4.5. Now we're going to subtract 12 from both sides and get negative 3X equals negative 7.5. Divide by negative 3, and you're going to find out that X is 2.5. Knowing that, that means that there are 2.5 pounds of green peppers, and since the total pounds of peppers was 3, then there has to be a ½ pound of orange peppers. Moving on, number 25. Notice the directions. It says solve the equation for y. That's what we need to do first before we do anything else. So I'm going to start with number 25, and we're going to solve this for y, which means I need to get rid of this 10x. So I'm going to subtract 10x, and we're going to do that to both sides of the equation. So then over here, those cancel each other out, and that leaves us with y equals, I'm going to put the x first, negative 10x, and bring down the plus 7. The reason why I put the x first is that gets us into the habit of writing in slope-intercept form because we're going to be using that in chapter 2. So it's good to get into that habit. That's the first part of our answer. We have now solved the equation for y. Now we're supposed to find the value of y for the given value of x. So using the equation that we just got, I'm going to now plug 3 in for x. So I'm going to have y equals negative 10 times 3 plus 7. And when I go ahead and solve this, negative 10 times 3 is negative 30. Bring down the plus 7. That leaves us with negative 23. That is the second part of the answer. So you need both of those. You need this first part where we solve for y, and you need this second part where we plugged in the x and got the value for y. That's number 25. Number 26. If I'm going to solve for y, the first thing I would need to do is add 3x to both sides. So that's what I'm going to do. Then we end up bringing down the 8y. These 3x's cancel, so we have equals. And again, I'm going to get into the habit of putting the x first, so it would be 3x. And that's a positive 18, so it would be plus 18. Now what we need to do is we need to divide everything by 8. So then that factors those out, so it becomes 1y equals 3/8 x plus, now I'm going to reduce this fraction. I'm going to turn that into 9/4. 2 goes into both of those. 2 goes into 18 9 times, 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I've reduced that fraction. That is now solved for y. So the next step would be to plug 2 in for x. So we have y equals 3/8 times 2 plus 9/4. Now the cool thing about this one is, think about this as 2 over 1. And you can reduce these when you go diagonally. 2 goes into both of those. So I'm going to take the 2, turn that into a 1, turn this 8 into a 4, because 2 goes into 8 4 times. Now when I multiply that fraction straight across, I'm going to have 3 times 1 on the top, so 3 over 4 times 1 is 4. So I end up with 3/4, and then we bring down the plus 9/4. Now I can add straight across the top. 3 plus 9 is 12. So it would be 12/4. And that is also known as 3. So that would be the second part of our answer, 3. Moving right along, number 27. This one's a little bit different because you have y's twice. When you have the y twice, what you need to do is actually factor that y out. Okay, so here's what this looks like. I factor out the y, then for this term here, I have x left. And then for this term, I would have minus 6. So then we finish the parentheses. Now we've factored that y out. And then I bring down the equals negative 15. Now, all I need to do is to get this y by itself is to divide both sides by that x minus 6. Make sure you do that to both sides of the equation. So now what happens is these x minus 6's factor out, so we end up with y equals negative 15 over x minus 6. And again, that's the first part of your answer. We have solved that equation for y. Now we're going to plug the 5 in. So y equals negative 15 over 5 minus 6, which ends up being negative 15 over negative 1. And we know that when two negatives are divided, that becomes positive. So our answer is going to be positive 15. So that's number 27. Number 28 is very much like some of the ones we've done already, so I'm going to skip that one. Again, if you have questions, please make sure you ask in class. Number 29, same kind of thing. We're going to skip that one. Number 30 is a little bit different because there's two x's. But when there's two x's, you don't have to treat that any differently. We're trying to solve for y, okay? So what I need to do is I need to get rid of this x first. So I'm going to subtract x on both sides. So then these are going to cancel each other out. Make sure you bring the negative down, so it'd be negative 3xy equals 1 minus x. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 3x. And then what happens is these negative 3's factor out, these x's factor out, that leaves us with 1y equals 1 minus x over negative 3x. So there we have solved that one for y. Now we're going to take the negative 5 and plug it in. So we've got y equals 1 minus negative 5 over negative 3 times negative 5. Now remember, when you're subtracting a negative, that is like adding the opposite. So we turn that into plus positive 5, so that becomes 6 over, here, two negatives when you multiply become positives, so it'd be 6 over 15. Now, looking at that, I know that 3 goes into both of those. 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So my answer would be 2/5, and that's number 30. 31. The formula S equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared gives the surface area of a cylinder with a height of h and a radius of r. Notice it says the first thing we need to do is solve the formula for h. Then we're going to find the height when we have a radius and a surface area. So again, notice it says solve the formula for h first. So that needs to be our first step. So I'm going to take that equation, and if I want to solve for h, I first need to get rid of 2 pi r squared. So I'm going to subtract that on both sides. And that leaves us with s minus 2 pi, whoa, interesting, 2 pi r squared. Sorry, that got really messy. That's all right, we're going to work with it. And then that equals 2 pi RH. So then these are going to cancel out. Now if I want to get this h by itself, what I need to do is to divide by the 2 pi r. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay? Now, you could leave your answer just like this for h, or you could write this as two separate fractions. First, we would take s over the 2 pi r. So that'd be the first part. And then we have a minus. Now, the cool thing about this is the 2's are going to factor out, the pi's are going to factor out, and here there's an r on the top and the bottom. But the top has 2 r's. So I'm going to leave one of those, and that's going to stay on the top. So that would actually be my answer. I've got this first fraction minus r equals, and then over here, the 2's factor, the pi's factor, the r's factor out. That leaves us with 1h. So there is the first part of our answer. We've now solved for h. Now the rest of the problem says to find h when r is 5 and s is 400. So I'm going to plug those in. They tell us that s is 400 over 2, oops, I tried to do a pi there first. So we've got 2 pi, and then r is 5, minus, and then r is 5 again, and that's going to give us our height. Okay? Now, typically, I would go through and I would work this out. However, I'm going to leave this just the way it is, and it would be up to you to type this into your calculator and get the answer at the end for the height. Just remember, when you're done, okay, so there's still more to go, plug this into your calculator, find the height, and remember, don't forget your label. In this case, the height is going to be in centimeters, because you can see up here, the radius was in centimeters, and the surface area was in square centimeters. There's my doorbell. And that's going to conclude part 3 of Chapter 1 review.